Hello, welcome again to my kitchen and welcome to the second video that I'm making about some basic interview skills you'll want to have before you go out looking for that job. On the first video that I made in this series, we talked about some nonverbal communication tips to help you get the interview and the job that you want, and some tips on answering 3 of the most common interview questions. Today, we're going to move a little bit beyond that, talk about some of the personal information you should bring with you to an interview or have ready when you're filling out an application, and 3 more questions that you might be asked during a typical interview. In the last interview series video, I brought in one of my puppets just to add a little bit of fun, and I thought I would do that again today. So with us today, we have Mr. Raccoon in his can here. We will be talking with him later about a job that he'd like to get, but we'll leave that for now. He'll come back in a little bit, and we'll see him in a while. So the first thing that I want to talk about today is basic information that you want to have when you're filling out an application. You will be asked to fill out an application either in person on paper or more likely these days online for most jobs. And I usually start when I'm talking with students about filling out applications with a form like this. It has some of the most basic information you should have, and it lets them start practicing being familiar with how these things appear on an application. So let's run through these really quickly. You're always going to be asked your name. Sometimes your first name and last name will be in. You get your first name, middle initial, and last name in the right places. Try to write as neatly as you can. If that's a challenge, make sure that you have the information with you if you get called in for an interview, because they might ask you to clarify that information if they can't read it. Moving beyond that, your address. How they want your address will be different on different forms, but you want to watch for the places where they want you to fill in this part, which would really be your street address. So the number of your house, the street name, and court or street or avenue, your city, your state, and the 5-digit zip code. Again, if you aren't sure of those things or you haven't memorized that zip code, you can have it written down somewhere and bring it with you when you fill out an application or when you're going to an interview. You want to make sure you get these things right, because if you get hired, that might be the information they use to pay you. You may, on some applications, see a box like this. M or F means male or female. Are you a boy or a girl? Not every form will have that, but some of them might. So you want to talk about with your family, make sure you know how to answer that question. After you've completed your full address, you might see something asking your birthday. This will sometimes be something that is a blank, where you can write the month, the date, and the year, or sometimes it will have lines on it, and they want you to put the date in digits. Areas too, if you're not sure how to write your birth date in just numbers, have someone help you with that so you can practice and be ready for whatever kind of form you get. Your age may be there, though it may not be, because they might be able to just do the math from your birthday to figure out your age. But this means how old are you? You may be asked something like that, though it's unlikely on a lot of forms because asking your age is kind of obvious if they already know your birth date. An email and a phone number. If you don't have your own email, you want to put down an email that is something that your family uses that they can get the information to you. Though I recommend, if you are old enough to be going out to do an interview, that you have a basic email you can use for these. That email should be something that is simple, it involves your name. It shouldn't necessarily be an email that reflects your best interests. I once had an interview, an application come in at a job where I used to work when I was a manager, that their email was something like sillyjeepboy.com. And I thought, I don't know if I want to hire Silly Jeep Boy for friends. Again, your phone number, and that should include the area code. So this should be a 10-digit number, and your signature. If you have a paper form, which is increasingly not happening as much as things go online, you would want to have your signature at the bottom. Even if someone helps you fill out the top part, the signature should be you with a pen or pencil, writing your name as formally as is comfortable for you. So let's run through this really quickly. I'm going to make something up for our friend, the raccoon in the trash can. All right. So we'll say his name, Raccoon. Okay. First name, middle initial, last name. And his address is, let's say, 123 Sailor Street. He is male. He lives in the city of Columbus, Ohio. You can put OH or the whole state. And we'll say his zip is 43224. So I made up the street, but that's a basic way to fill out something like that. We'll give him a birth date. Most places you need to be at least 16 to apply to work, though some places will hire you a little younger. So since it's 2020, we'll say he was born in 2003. We'll say 3/03/2003. I put 3 for March, 3 for the 3rd, 2003. There's some leeway there. I could put 03 there if I wanted to. His age then would be 17. For an email, we'll say he's got a professional email. So jjraccoon@gmail.com. I should email that sometime to see if that's a real email. I hope it isn't. A phone number, 614-555-2121. So a complete phone number with 10 digits, and then I won't sign this because he would need to sign the bottom. So that's just an overview. Now let's move on to those interview questions. The 3 interview questions that I want to talk about today, building on the ones we did before, start with this one. Tell me about your last job. People are going to want to know, if you worked before, where you worked. You want to be positive. Maybe your last job wasn't great and there's a reason that you're not there anymore, but this is not the time to complain about it. So remember, be positive and try to focus on what you did there. What was the work that you did? What did you learn while you were there? Ideally, if your last job has something in common with your new job and you can talk about things you did before that will help you in this job you want to get, that's a really good opportunity to share that. The second one here, why do you want this job? This is a good chance for you to show that you have looked up this company online and find out about them so that you can show what you know about this job and why you'd be a good fit there. So you want to remember that if you visit this company, you can tell them. If it's a restaurant like McDonald's and you love their food, talk about how you come there frequently. This is not the time to talk about money. Yes, you probably want a job because you want to make some money, but it's not necessarily a great impression when someone says, why do you want this job? And you're like, oh, I've got a lot of bills, or I really want some money for a new iPad. They probably know that people want to get paid, but you want to focus on the reason that you're excited about working at the job and less on the money, though money always comes up a point later on in the hiring process. The 6th question in our series, or the last one for today, how do you handle stress? You don't just want to say, oh, I don't get stressed, because realistically, everyone feels stressed sometimes, and pretty much every job has some stress involved in it. Showing that you can handle that stress is a way to show maturity and that you have experience dealing with tough situations. So you want to try to say a way you handle stress that you might be able to use in this workplace. I might like to handle stress by curling up on my couch and reading a book, but I can't do that at my job, forward to later in my day. Those are all ways that you can show you handle stress, and you could use those in a workplace. Okay? So just to be a little silly and a little fun, let's try going over these 3 questions, and I'll bring back my friend, the raccoon. I'm going to imagine that John Raccoon, my friend here, is applying for a job. He wants to work in sanitation at a hospital. Previously, he has worked at a school. And so I'm going to interview him using those 3 questions and see how we could demonstrate good ways to answer questions that we just discussed. So remember, the first one was, tell me about your last job. Hello, Mr. Raccoon. How are you today? I'm good. Since we're conducting this interview, I'd like you to tell me a little bit about your last job. Well, at my last job, I worked at a school. I helped keep the playgrounds clean, and I really liked talking to the kids. That sounds nice. It sounds like you had a pretty good experience there, and it might relate to what we do where I work. The next thing I'd like to know is, why do you want this job? Well, I thought that it would be important to help people in new ways, and being at the hospital, it's very important that everything stay clean, so I could help with that. That makes sense. It is very important that everything at our hospital be clean and safe for our patients. Finally, I want to ask you, how do you handle stress? Well, I admit that sometimes stress can be hard. I usually try to take a deep breath and take some time to tell myself that things are going to be okay. That sounds like a good strategy. We'll let you know if we're going to hire you for the job. Thanks. Just being silly there. But again, demonstrating that when you get those common interview questions, if you practice and prepare beforehand, you can feel comfortable answering them and don't feel like you're stuck. So remember, when you go for an interview, have some basic information with you. If it's not something that's easy to memorize, you can have it written down, have it saved somewhere, like in a wallet, in a tablet, or a phone, so that you have everything you need in an application. If they aren't able to read the things you've read or something seems unusual, they might ask you about it when you go in for your interview. And remember our 3 questions for today. When they ask you to talk about your last job, be positive and talk about what you did and learned there. When they ask you why you want this job, show that you've looked up this company. If you go there often, talk about your experiences there. And don't necessarily start talking about money or things like your personal needs right then. This is more of an opportunity to talk about why you're excited to join this workplace. Finally, if they ask you how you handle stress, be honest. All of us have stress sometimes, and try to have at least one strategy you could share that shows that you could handle stress in this job you'd like to get. That's all for today. I hope I'll see you again next time when we do another video on interview skills.